Hey guys, in this video we're going to take a look at P4 Lab 1. So let's check out the instructions. So I'm in Module 6 in the loops, and I'm going to scroll down until I see P4 Lab 1 instructions, and let's check it out. Alright, so what's given here are some zip files, and these are going to have examples of a Python library called Turtle. Now, I have no clue why it's called Turtle, because what it truly represents is using a pen to draw on a piece of paper or a canvas. So you'll see things like pen up, pen down, move forward, move backward, turn left, turn right, things like that. All right, so it's used to draw. If you'd like to, you can download the zip file and unzip it and run some of the files in there and check it out. But I'm going to give you guys a very quick and thorough walkthrough of this lab, so you can just follow along with me if you'd like. All right, so the instructions are here. I'm going to just click this to open them. You guys only have to do part A with the shapes. You do not have to draw your initials. But if you want to draw your initials, I will add 5 points to this assignment. So you can get 5 extra points on this assignment if you do the initial part as well. And if you do both, please just put both of those files, Lab1A and Lab1B, together in a zip file. All right, and submit the zip file to me. So what you want to do for part A, I'm not going to help you on part B, so if you want to do that, that's up to you, right? We're going to draw some shapes. So we're going to use the turtle library along with a while loop or a for loop, and we're going to draw a square and a triangle. All right, so that pretty much gives us an explanation. Now let's talk about how to set up this turtle library and how to get started, right? So the idea is to draw a square and to draw a triangle, both using loops. Let's go ahead and open idle, or however you like to code. You guys should go to File, New File, and then go ahead and create a file. And you want to name it appropriately, so I'm going to rename mine with you guys. It should be P4 Lab1 underscore last name, first name. All right, and save it wherever you like to save your files. All right, so first things first, we need to put our name, the date. This is P4 Lab 1, and we are going to say this is going to use turtle and loops to draw a square and a triangle. All right, so first things first, before you can even use this turtle module, it's not built into Python, meaning it doesn't come with Python when you downloaded it. So you have to use this import statement up here at the top to be able to pull in the turtle library and use it in your code. All right, that's all you need to know about it for now. Let's just say import the library. All right. Now we have to create a window and a turtle object. Now the reason we have to create a window is because when we run this turtle code in Python, it's actually not going to show up in our normal output window. It's going to create a window of its own, and it's going to draw the object in that window. All right, so that's what this line of code is doing. Let me turn on my line numbers. So line number 11 is creating a window for turtle to draw in. All right, on the next line, I create the turtle object. So, like I said, not sure why it's called turtle. Truly, this is sort of representing the pen that you're going to draw with. All right, so I'm actually going to name mine pen, P-E-N, and if I rename it there, I'll have to rename it everywhere else in the code that I use my turtle object. All right, so let's take a look at some of the options that we can set with the turtle. Remember that I named mine pen, so I'm going to come through here and I'm going to rename my object PEN for like an ink pen. I can choose the size, meaning how large do I want my um, sort of like where my pen hits the paper, how big do I want that to be? I'll make mine a 5. We can choose the color of the pen. Right now it's set to green. You can put most of the basic colors in here and it will work just fine. So turtle is the normal shape of the pen, meaning when we run this code, you're going to see the turtle shape on the screen. So I'm going to leave it as is. If you guys need to, pause the video and go ahead and fill in all the code that I have here. All right, so I'm going to run it real quick just so we have an idea of like this turtle shape. All right, so there's our little turtle. He's going to be what kind of runs around the screen and draws the lines. I'm actually going to change mine to an arrow, and I think you should do the same because with the arrow, you can actually see what direction the shape is oriented in. So in other words, you can tell what direction you're headed, all right, if you use the arrow. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so now I have an arrow. I can see which direction I'm headed in. So that's the arrow, the direction, or the direction the arrow is pointing. And that's going to help us out a little bit when we go to draw these shapes. All right, so let's talk about the actions that the turtle could take. I'm going to put a comment in here. This is where I'm actually going to write my code to draw the shapes. All right, first things first, let's see what happens if we move forward. So in order to move forward, I have to call the name of my turtle object. I called it pen, and I type the word forward. Then I'm going to put a set of parentheses. And inside there, I'm going to put the number of spaces that I want to move forward. All right, so let's say we go forward 200. I'm just going to keep that, run it, and see what happens. All right, so what happened was my arrow moved 200 spaces forward. Great. Let's take a look at what happens if we were to move left or right. So I'm going to come back to my code. I'm going to say pen dot right. Now, when you turn left or right, you don't give spaces. You give an angle, the degrees of an angle. All right, so let's say we wanted to move to the right 90 degrees. What that's going to do is take where we're oriented, and it's going to turn our orientation to the right 90 degrees. So in our case, that should be pointed in a downward direction. And if you make it an arrow, it's a lot easier to see what direction you're oriented in. So let's run this, and let's just make sure we're right, that we're pointed downward now. And we are. You can see the end of the arrow pointing downward. So turning left or right doesn't actually move the arrow anywhere differently on the screen. It just orients the position that it's in. So right now we haven't moved any further. We've just changed direction, essentially. All right, so let's say we want to go to the left this time. That should have our arrow pointing in an upward direction. All right, so let's give it a run. And we should move forward, and then we should orient ourselves 90 degrees to the left. Move forward, and we turn to the left 90 degrees. All right, so from there, say I wanted to move forward a little bit more. Say I didn't want to go quite 200. Say I wanted to go 100. Now, if I move 100 spaces, I'm going to be moving in the new direction that I was oriented in. So I go forward, turn left, go 100. All right, and if I wanted to turn left again and go forward, I would be in this direction, right? Because I would turn left, I'd be pointed in this direction, then I'd go forward. If I wanted to go in this direction, I would need to turn to the right and then go forward. All right, so hopefully you guys are understanding a little bit about how it works. So what we need to do now is we need to figure out how to draw a square and a triangle, and then figure out how to make that into a loop. All right, so I'm gonna actually pull up a canvas here, and we're gonna do a little bit of drawing to figure out exactly how we need to do this. All right, so I'm just gonna pick a color, and we're gonna talk about drawing this triangle and this square. Let's start with the square. All right. So as you remember, when we first start off, we basically have the pen touching the paper. Nothing has happened yet. All right. In our example, we moved forward first. So let's say we do that again. Let's move forward maybe 100 spaces. All right, we move forward. Keep in mind that we're oriented right now. I'm gonna draw that a little bit longer. We'll still say we went 100. Right now I'm oriented in this direction, okay? Pointing to the right, essentially. If I wanna draw a square, I either need to go this way with my square or this way with my square. So if I'm pointing forward and I want to draw my square, the next side of my square and up here, I should turn left. So let's say we're going to turn left, and now we need to determine how many degrees we're going to turn left. Well, if we're drawing a square has all even sides, right? So all the sides are equal. And if we wanted to draw our square, another side, we would go like this, right? And if you look, that's a 90-degree angle. So after we move forward, we're going to turn 90 degrees, and that will have us oriented in this direction, okay? It won't actually draw that line that I just drew, though. All it's going to do is take you from being in this direction to pointing in this direction. All right, but we haven't really gone anywhere yet. So after we turn 90 degrees, we will go forward 100. All right, so say we want our next side to be here. Well, guess what? We need to turn to the left. Currently, we're oriented like this. We want to turn to the left 90 degrees. That will have us pointing in this direction. So now we're pointing to the left 90, forward 100. We're going to go to the left 90, forward 100. We could continue doing this if we wanted to, right? To the left 90, forward 100. To the left 90, forward 100. You guys are probably starting to see a pattern here, right? So when we first started, we were here. We went forward 100, to the left 90. Forward 100, to the left 90. So our algorithm here, our algorithm is going to be forward 100, and then to the left 90 degrees. All right, and that draws one side of our square. And since the square has four sides, we want to do both of these actions right here. We want this to happen 4 times, right? If this draws one side, then we need this to happen 4 times. So let's go ahead and do that in some code. All right, so in order to have a loop that's going to execute 4 times, that means I know how many times my loop is going to execute. So if you remember back to the lecture videos, if you know how many times you want something to happen, well, that's a for loop using the range function. All right, so let's go ahead and write our for loop. Remember that after the for keyword comes a variable. You can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it side. For side in. Now I want this to happen 4 times, so I'm going to call the range function, and I'm going to put a 4 in there. All right, that means that whatever code is inside of this loop will happen 4 times. And our algorithm to draw one side of the square was to move forward 100, left 90 degrees. So in order to do that, we have to call the name of our turtle object. Remember, I called mine pin dot forward. And we're going to move 100 spaces. Then we're going to take that object, and after we move 100 spaces, we're going to turn to the left 90 degrees. And that should draw one side of our square. After it's done it once, it's going to hop right back up here. It's going to do it a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. And after it runs the 4th time, we should have a square. And don't forget, you've got a little bit of code down here, but all it's doing is essentially keeping the window open for you. All right, so that should give us a square. Let's check it out and see if it does. Fantastic, we've got our square, right? Nice. Alrighty, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna talk about how to draw this triangle. Well, we're gonna actually use a while loop to draw the triangle, all right? Now remember that a while loop almost always works with a variable. So let's think about the square that we just drew. we had a loop, and each time the loop executed, we drew one side of the shape. We're going to do the exact same thing for the triangle. And we could easily use a for loop. We could say for side in range 3, right? And then we could draw the triangle. But let's use a while loop instead so we get practice with both. So if I want this while loop to execute 3 times, I need to write some code to go ahead and do that first before I even start worrying about how to draw the shape itself. So I'm going to create a while loop that executes 3 times. I'm going to actually put a comment in here, and we're going to say while loop that executes 3 times. All right. So first of all, we go all the way against the left margin. We don't want this while loop to be inside the for loop, so make sure you're backed up to the left margin. And remember that we have to have a condition here. Uh-oh. Well, how can I have a condition if I don't have anything to compare? So first I need to create a variable. And let's say sides equals 3. All right. So I want to make sure that my loop happens 3 times. So let's think about how we can make this happen. Well, if we say while sides is less than, or we could say while sides is greater than 0. How about that? Let's see if that works. While sides greater than 0. Remember that there's not one absolute correct way to do this. You can achieve this multiple different ways. So if you think of logic that is different than mine, but it still makes the loop happen 3 times, that's perfectly fine. All right, we all can think of things in different ways, and if you can have your code do it that way and it works, it's just as good as my way. All right, so while sides is greater than 0, I'm going to write a little bit of test code here. All right, I'm going to say print sides. So tell me what the value is on that iteration. Remember that if I don't have another line of code down here to change the value of sides, I'm going to get stuck in one of those endless loops because sides will always equal 3 and 3 will always be greater than 0. So if I don't put some code down here to make sides a different value, I'm going to be stuck in an endless loop. What I need to do is say sides equals sides minus 1. All right, so what's going to happen the first time around, this will be 3. It's true. We print 3. This becomes 2. Now sides is equal to 2. 2 is greater than 0, so everything will happen again, and then it will equal 1. 1 is greater than 0. This will be 1. Now this is 0, right? Sides equals 0. So while sides is greater than 0, 0 is not greater than 0. So that would break us out of our loop. That means it would have happened 3 times. All right, I'm going to run it just to make sure. It's going to draw the squares still. That's perfectly fine. All right, and then our code is going to execute back here, and it did run 3 times, so we're good to use that while loop to draw our triangle. All right, and what we want to do now is we don't want to print sides in here anymore. We want to move our turtle object around. All right, so let's go back to the drawing board over here and talk about how we can actually draw a triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know we're still going to go forward 100 spaces because why not? That's a nice round number, right? We need to figure out what angles we need to be turning if we want to make a triangle. So it's obviously a little more difficult than the square because all of its sides were 90 degrees. So I have a little chart here. Let's look at it. So we can really understand what angle we need to be drawing this triangle at. All right. So here's our triangle. And let's talk about what we got going on here. So whatever we do, we're going to go forward. And if you consider that we're moving in this direction right now, this would be right and this would be left. So obviously we're going forward and moving left. All right. Now let's talk about what angle we need to be turning at. So we're going forward, we're turning left some degrees. We're going forward, we're turning left some degrees. Going forward, turning left, right? So let's talk about how many degrees we need to turn. So here we are, we're going forward. Now we need to turn. If we think about this, if we were to keep going straight, we would follow this line right here, right? But we don't want to keep going straight. We don't want to follow that line. We want to make this angle right here so that we can actually continue drawing this side of the triangle. So if we were to keep going straight, we'd be going along this line. And in order to get from this angle going straight to this angle right here, we have to turn this many. All right, so we're turning 60 degrees to get us here and another 60 degrees to get us here. And it's happening on a way smaller scale, but it's happening right here at the top of the triangle, right? We were going straight, whoop, turn 120 degrees to the left. All right, so 120 degrees is going to be our key for each one of these angles. That's how far we're going to turn. All right, let's talk about what we'll do. We will go forward 100. We will turn to the left 120 degrees. That will put us going in this direction. Then we move forward 100. Turn to the left 120. Move 100. Right? So we're going forward and then turning left 120 degrees. So let's put that code in. Pen dot forward. And we are going to move forward 100 spaces. And then we need to turn. So let's say pen dot left. We're going to turn left 120 degrees. All right. And remember, this loop is going to happen 3 times. So both of these actions, both of these actions here will happen 3 times. All right, let's give it a run. All right, fantastic. Our triangle is inside of our square. That is perfectly fine. So we've drawn both shapes using a for loop and we used a while loop. All right, nice job.